Our next guest is a co-founder of one of the most influential hip-hop and rap groups of the last 30 years, N.W.A. Rolling Stones ranked N.W.A. at number 83 on his list of the 100 greatest artists of all time. Kim Nazel, better known as Arabian Prince, joins us today. Arabian, what a tremendous honor to have you on the show. I'm an amateur musician and a great fan of N.W.A., so I'm very excited to speak with you. I always cherish the opportunity to speak with celebrities about music because that is my passion. But we'll be talking about a lot more than music today. We'll be talking about your music career, but also your foray into blockchain, technology companies, and the metaverse. Welcome to the show, Arabian Prince. Welcome to Kitco.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Arabian Prince. That's not your birth name, of course. That is your stage name that you've used for the better part of your life, better part of your career. Tell us, how did that name come about? You grew up on the West Coast in Compton. You're neither an Arabian or a prince by birth.
No, I'm not. And, I was born Kim Nazel. And like we talked offline, growing up with the name Kim in Compton made you tough. It made you a tough kid, So I used to go by DJ Prince because I was a huge Prince fan. And I never hide from my past because I always say, if you lived in the 80s, you look like Prince, Michael Jackson, Depeche Mode, you look like somebody. Everybody had their thing, Madonna. So I was this Prince guy, man. I loved Prince. So I used to go by DJ Prince. And another famous hip hop guy, DJ from back in the day and producer and artist, Egyptian Lover, was a very, very close friend of mine. And we would always be doing stuff together, DJing together. So Egyptian Lover and DJ Prince. And then some girl came up one day and was like, you should call yourself Arabian Prince. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. I think I'll keep that. So that's where that came from.
All right. So you were inspired by a girl. You still talk to her?
And I don't even know who she was. I only saw her that one time and never spoke to her again. So if she's out there somewhere, she was the reason that I call myself Arabian Prince.
The rest is history. Let's talk about the founding of N.W.A. As I said, rated one of the greatest pop groups of all time. Now, you've had, this group has had an influential or monumental influence on all of hip hop, formed in the late 80s, 86, I believe, and you were one of the original co-founders. We'll talk about that. So let's start with the history of the group. How did you meet Dr. Dre, Ice Cube? How did you co-found the group with them?
So we all were DJs on the West Coast, like in the early 80s, if you wanted to get into the scene, you were either a dancer or a DJ, or somebody that just came to the parties. And I was a DJ growing up. I had my own teen club called The Cave, and Dr. Dre and DJ Yella were part of a group called The Wrecking Crew at the time. And they used to do big parties in LA, in Compton, The Wrecking Crew. There was another big crew with a friend of mine, Egyptian Lover, called Uncle Jam's Army. Huge, would do DJ parties, before there were festivals, they would do DJ parties with 10,000 people at like the convention center and the sports arena. So that's what was going on in the early 80s. And we all would cross paths and play at the same events and do things like that at the skating rinks. And that's kind of how I met Dre and Yella. And, we started there and then eventually started getting into making records, but dance music early on, electro, we called it electro funk. And eventually me and Dre would hang really, really tight and met a guy named Eazy-E, who we called the neighborhood pharmaceutical technician at the time. He was doing his own little thing, making money, and met him. And the rest was history. We got together and started N.W.A.
You actually didn't rap very much throughout the production side. Like I believe you've only rapped a few times in the early albums. Why was it that you chose to do more of the production work?
Yeah, I've always been a kind of behind the scenes guy, man. You mentioned the word, you said celebrity earlier. I always call myself a C-list celebrity. You see me now and then, and that's it. I'm not a guy who wants to be out there on stage.
You're very humble for somebody as influential as N.W.A. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah, I like the humble life, man. I played basketball, I played golf. I like just being out there and nobody recognizing me. And Prince back in the day, I had that whole mysterious thing like Prince. Prince was very mysterious. And I was the same way. I was like, I don't care about fame. I just want to do what I do and create. I'm an innovator. Yeah.
All right. All right. And again, what was sort of the proudest work that you produced during NWA?
Oh,
You stayed there for a few years before you left.
yeah. So, our biggest thing was the album Straight Outta Compton. I was there for that. I actually left during the tour Straight Outta Compton when I found out that our manager was ripping us off of money. And that was actually the greatest thing that ever happened to me, is finding out somebody was taking my money as a young guy. Because, if I never found out, there's so many artists out there now still getting ripped off about their business. I teach a music business class, and I always tell people there's two words in music and business. And don't focus on your music unless you take care of your business. You got to take care of your business first, because you can do all the music you want, but if your business not taken care of, you're not going to make money. So I found out about it and was able to move on and get my attorneys and get paid. And, I get all my royalties and everything. And, it was a good thing.
I'm going to let you tell your story here, because your story wasn't told in the movie Straight Outta Compton. In fact, your contribution was omitted, and that was a big controversy there. Also, the group N.W.A. was inducted in the Hall of Fame in, I believe, 2016, and you weren't there, unfortunately. So I'll let you tell your side of the story. What happened there?
Yeah, I was having some issues with Eazy's wife, who owns everything. She owns Ruthless Records and N.W.A. name and all of that. And I get a percentage of that, and she doesn't like it because I took care of my business before Eazy passed away. And when he passed and she took over everything, she doesn't feel that she has to pay anybody. So I'm one that she has to take care of, and she doesn't like it. So my character was actually in the movie. It was the funniest thing. Like, if you go through the scenes, my character is there. He's just standing in the corner, like looking at the wallpaper or something like that. So she took some of my scenes out, but it's all good. It's kind of like, what you did, people know what I did. And like I said, I don't mind, because I really don't care about the fame. I care about the business.
Well, we will talk about the business side, and you have made a very successful career after you left NWA. You said that you had some problems with management, and you felt like you weren't being treated fairly in terms of your compensation. And I want to talk about artists' compensation today, because the whole business has really changed in the wake of streaming. So tell us what happened after NWA. You had a series of singles, right? You worked on your solo career, right?
Yeah, I had an album on EMI Orpheus that came out, did well, had some singles. I'm also known as Professor X too. So I put out a bunch of records under Professor X over the years as well, which is more kind of craft work, German electro music that I love so much. So I still do that as well. And in parallel, we have to talk about this really quickly.
Yeah.
It wasn't the fact that I jumped into technology. I was doing technology since I was 16, 17 years old, taught myself how to code, was doing animation and visual effects and video game stuff when I was 16, 17, 18. I worked on the first series of the Power Rangers doing visual effects while I was rapping. And Silver Surfer, Addams Family, Casper, worked on 100 video games with Fox Interactive, Vivendi, Universal, and a bunch of companies. So I've been in the space forever, and just kind of growing my craft and moving into different areas of technology.
All right. And you mentioned to me offline you're still engaged in a lot of musical projects today, some of which you can't talk about, but we will talk about the things that you are allowed to talk about. But Arabian Prince, I want to ask you, because you've been around the scene since the dawn of basically the golden age of hip hop, some might call it. NWA was famous for the genre, which you might call gangster rap. The genres have evolved over time. The lyricism of the East Coast versus the hardcore gangster style of the West Coast. That kind of just, that dichotomy isn't really here as much now, one would argue, in the hip hop scene. You see a lot of things like mumble rap take focus, and back then people were prized for the lyricism. Now a lot of younger artists have the style where you can't really understand what they're saying. What is the evolution? How would you characterize the evolution of the hip hop style over the last 20 years? What's changed?
Yeah, the culture has changed. We got to understand, and I understand that I embrace all music, because I understand that over the last 100 years, each new generation has their music. If you look back at the early rock and roll, and then the Beatles came along and disrupted rock and roll. You know what I mean? Chubby Checker came along, disrupted rock and roll. NWA came along, disrupted rap. And the new generation, they have their style. And I think a lot of it has to do with social media. Everything is now truncated. The way that the newer generation of kids, was it the Z generation X? I don't know, whatever they call it.
I think we're on the Z now.
Z or something like that.
Which is kind of concerning because what's after Z? There's no letter after Z. I don't know what they call it.
It start going to numbers or something, or like exclamation points. But you know, everything that they do is shorthand, truncated. They look at short videos. Everything is 30 seconds, a minute long. Even the new songs now, the songs are 2 minutes long. You could even make a record back in the day that wasn't 5 or 6 minutes long. Now a record is 2 minutes long. So it's a different culture. Everybody wants quick, instantaneous satisfaction. And that's what this new mumble rap and the new generation of music is. It's quick, instantaneous. People get it and they're in and out and on to the next thing.
Yeah. I think you, of all people, would appreciate the technology behind music. Would you say there was a disruptor after N.W.A. that really changed the sound?
Yeah, I think it had to do with, because we were using drum machines and, you know, very bulky sequencers and stuff back in the day. Sampling became a big thing. And the fact that you can now use and create music on your phone, GarageBand, like there's a lot of hit records on GarageBand, Fruity Loops software. People are using Fruity Loops. One of the biggest dance songs of all time, Animals, you know, Martin Garrix's Animals. That thing has over 1 billion views on YouTube. One of the biggest dance records of all time was created on Fruity Loops, a software that used to be given away for free. So I think that was the biggest change in the sound, is the fact that the younger generation can get a hold of a piece of software that does everything for them. Ableton, Fruity Loops, all of these softwares now do something that we had to figure out and almost, you know, be a musician to do it back in the day.
Okay. And what do you think of Kanye? Some would argue that he really changed the sound.
Kanye, you know, the musical genius, Kanye West, you know, shout out to him. He has changed the sound. And I think he made music more free, the way he does music. You know what I mean? He stepped outside of the boundary of what rap was framed as and started taking it into gospel and other types of music. And, you know, I'm seeing that a lot more with a lot of groups. You got your Kendrick Lamar's, and, you know, one of my favorite artists right now is, oh my God, I was just in Belgium with him, Anderson .Paak. I mean, this guy
love Anderson .Paak.
Oh my God, you know, I mean, everything that he touches is gold, because he can transcend between so many different styles of music. And I think that's going to be the next type of artist, is an artist that can go from pop to rap.
He's got a bit of an R&B vibe to him. It's not just hip hop, you know, like a lot of artists are like kind of fusion styles now, I find.
Yeah.
The really cool ones.
Old school, new school, he does it all. So I think you're gonna see a lot more artists like that.
Yeah, his collab with Bruno Mars, I really loved.
Oh, and, amazing.
Yeah. And do you think your style, West Coast hip hop, gangster rap, whatever you like to call it, you know, do you think that's making a comeback now?
I'm hearing it again. I'm seeing new generations starting to dabble in that style that we created back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's different. You know, they've got their own sound. And I think that's what's special is the next generation of hip hop artists are creating their own sound.
So let me ask you this. If you were early 20s again and, you know, you linked up with Ice Cube and Dr. Dre and Yella and all those guys again, same age, young guys, you had to link up in your garage and make new music. What's the sound you would try to create today?
I think that, so when we did N.W.A, it was more just kind of like what you're doing, reporting on what's going on. And we were reporting on what's going on in our neighborhood. It wasn't that we were trying to sensationalize anything. It was what we saw every day. The police, the crackheads, the strawberries, you know, all of the stuff that was going on in our neighborhood. Those were stories. Those were songs to us. And I think today it would be exactly the same thing. Unfortunately, a lot of it hasn't changed. We still be talking about the police, still be talking about brutality and killing, because it hasn't changed much. But I think it would probably be the same thing.
Okay. Any themes, like societal themes, that have changed over the last 25 years?
You know what's funny? I think the only thing that I can think of that has changed is everything is more expensive. We probably will be crying more about gas prices. I just put what cost me $7.09 a gallon right now here in LA.
Please make a track about gas prices, please.
Yes. I'd probably be a hit, a big hit.
And inflation. I want to talk about technology and the metaverse now, because that's one of your projects. The metaverse is a lot of different things to a lot of different people. As an artist, how would you utilize the metaverse to not only promote your art, but also incorporate sounds into the metaverse to reach a broader audience?
Yeah, so, the metaverse is an interesting thing. Web 3.0, a lot of people have different names for it. Web 3.0, the metaverse, the blockchain, it's all the same thing. And I try to dumb it down for people who are not really into technology and tell them this. The metaverse is no different than what you're doing now in social media, what you're doing now on the internet as we speak in Web 2.0. All it is a more interactive web, right? A more interactive web. So meaning that music now, right? Music will be more interactive, NFTs, on the blockchain, more security, more transparency for artists to get paid, things like that. So. Okay.
Can you give us a little bit of a teaser of your project? I believe it's called N.W.A. How did that name come about, and what is this about?
Yeah, so I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, Gary Wynn, who's an entrepreneur. He owns a lot of clinics in Los Angeles. He does a lot of stuff in healthcare. And he came to me one day and said, "Hey, Arabian, I know you're the tech guy, right? We want to invest in the metaverse. We hear this thing is coming. We want to get in early with medical." And I was very honest with him. And I said, look, I wouldn't spend any money in the metaverse right now if you're going to go and try to buy some land in Decentraland or Sandbox or something like that, because there's really nothing there. It's just the land grab right now. I call it Donkey Kong 2.0. They might get mad at me if they want, but it's just the old video game engine that people are running around in and go, "Ooh, I got land," but there's really nothing to do. So I said, if you really want to do something, that has inherent value in the medical space, we got to do it from the ground up. We have to build it, and we need to get people who are passionate about changing the face of healthcare. And that's what MD-DAO is. It's the medical DAO, and DAO is decentralized autonomous organization, where we're going to build this membership and bring professional healthcare, alternative medicine, and regular people into our metaverse and have them be a community and help us build the future of healthcare. So that's kind of what we're building.
Okay. And what are the problems of healthcare today that you aim to fix with your project?
Well, one of the biggest problem is everything is siloed, right? You have all of the different insurance companies, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, or you're with Kaiser. And if you're with Kaiser Hospital, you can't go any other hospital but Kaiser, right? So we want to make it so that people have more options in healthcare. People have quicker access to healthcare right now because of COVID. It takes months now to get an appointment with your doctor. But why do you have to go to that doctor? There's probably a doctor somewhere in this country that can give you advice, talk to you, maybe even you don't actually have to go into a hospital to get diagnosed all the time. If there's something serious, yes, you need to go. But think about it. When last time you've been to the doctor, how long did you actually sit and talk to your doctor in the room? 5 minutes? He's in, he's out. You're with the nurse, you're with an assistant. They get all the information. The doctor comes in, he gets his chart, and he's like, okay, yeah, sounds like this. Okay, here's a prescription. He gets his money, he's gone. So we want to make it so that you can get more direct information, more community-driven information, and then more access to healthcare out there that's better for you, as opposed to you have to use this hospital or you have to use that doctor.
Some people might not know this side about you, but you've been business savvy for a long, long time, and this leads to our discussion about your next venture. But you've been an investor of tech stocks since, I believe, the 80s, I read, right? Back then you were an early investor of Apple, Microsoft, and some other things. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and you know what? I can't take credit for that.
Okay.
I was a smart kid, but to be honest, when I got my first royalty check from making records, I wanted to buy rims for my car. My mother was like, that's
Hey,
not going to happen.
no shame in that. That's probably
Yeah,
every guy's first
yeah.
purchase.
Oh, yeah, I want rims. My mother was like, you have never seen this much money in your life, right? And it wasn't a lot of money. It was like $2,000-$3,000, but I'm 16, 17 years old with a $3,000 check in the 80s, and she said, we're going to get you an accountant and figure it out. And I got lucky and got an accountant who was just way ahead of his time and really into tech at that time. And he wasn't into like, let's put it into mobile. Let's put it into some old stock or something like that. No, he was like, hey, let's look at this current stuff that's going on. What's hot? And I put some money in and started seeing a return. And then I was waiting to give them money then. Like, okay, I got more money. Let's put it in here, because I was able to buy rims, buy a car, get an apartment, and do all these things from my dividends. And I'm like, I'm in early. And I kept trying to tell my friends at the time who were in the music business, but they didn't get it, so I was blessed to get in early.
Okay. And these stocks, can you name? Do you remember some of the first stocks you bought and why you bought them?
Yeah, it was early Macintosh, Apple, whatever, IBM, Microsoft. We were into, I don't think we were into Oracle back then. It was a couple other that I don't remember. There was some stock that we did that was more into the defense space, because that was hot at the time in the 80s. And I remember there was a computer company called Commodore at the time. I think we were dabbling into that. They kind of went bust, so that didn't work out too well. But
well, everything else you bought worked out. Do you still hold some of those stocks or no?
Oh yeah, most definitely still hold some of those stocks. I've moved some of that stuff into crypto. I got a quick story about crypto, how I got into blockchain and into
please.
Bitcoin. I was working on video games in the late 90s, early 2000s, and we were dabbling with Bitcoins to use in-game for transactions, because we were working on a game called, at the time, I think Asheron's Call, which was an RPG game, kind of like EverQuest. And people were buying and selling swords and armor and things, but there was no way to do it. So you had to trust a person. So I've got the Sword of Azeroth and I want to sell it for $1,000. You want to buy it for me. The only way to do it at the time was, it wasn't even eBay. It was kind of like, what was that one in the magazine? It was like a newspaper back then. Like, I forget the name of that newspaper where you buy and sell stuff. I used to be in there all the time. I would buy it every week from the store, but you would have to like physically meet the person and get the money or trust that they were going to pay you. So we dabbled with Bitcoin when there were pennies and forgot about it. And I had a couple of hard drives full of that stuff. And later on, time went on, I started hearing news about Bitcoin, like, Bitcoin, I remember that stuff. I think I got a computer with some of that on there, and I did.
Please tell me you didn't throw that away.
No, I got them, and I still got them. So
nice, good for you. Yeah. You hear stories of people mining Bitcoin or having a bunch of Bitcoin in the early days, and then back then it was worth nothing. They threw the hard drives out. Some people went to the landfill to go retrieve them, couldn't find it. Oh man, it's heartbreaking.
I had a buddy who had the same computer as me with the same Bitcoins on it, and he redid his hard drive so he can install more games. I was like, dude, no.
You're big into video games. Do you have any video game projects coming up we were working on?
Not at the moment, man. I'm just a video game player right now, but we have well, you know what? I take that back. We kind of do. Me and Ice-T and another friend of ours called Tom and the Animator just started a new project. We're launching a graphic novel. I'm actually flying out in the morning to Comic-Con New York to announce something we have called Tech City, TEHK City. And it's called, the title is, this is the prequel to a cartoon that we have coming out. So this one's called Death for Hire, The Origin of Tech City. Which is just a graphic novel that's leading up to a full-blown cartoon that me, Ice-T, and Tommy Animator are dropping, and everybody's in this. We got Dr. Dre doing the music. We've got Snoop Dogg. We got Mike Epps. We got Tracy Morgan. We've got a lot of people. Busta Rhymes are all characters in this new animated series that's about to come out early next year.
And what do you think about tech stocks today?
You know what's funny, man? I still believe in them. I say everything Elon Musk right now. Like, this guy's a genius. Every time you turn around, he's doing something new. We need more. Here's what I say. We need more futurists. I'm a self-proclaimed futurist, right? We need more people that want to innovate. And no disrespect to Apple, no disrespect to, their leaders and the people at Apple, but I think Apple has gotten very stagnant, because if you look back at what Steve Jobs created, and their, path was like this, and all of a sudden they went like this, and they're flatlining. Everything they come out with is the same thing. It's just a new version of this, it's just a new version of that. There's nothing to it. They become almost like a cult, an Apple cult, where you buy because we're Apple, but where is the innovation? The innovation is slowed down. So I'm very bullish on companies out there that are innovating and creating new things.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these companies may be startups that have these really cool, radical ideas, but maybe don't make it past a funding stage, or maybe they mismanage their money and they go bust. But you look at all these, you're right. If you look at all these big companies, they're innovating in small increments. The huge radical innovation is happening with the small guys, right?
Yeah. And what I tell people, I speak at, conferences, just like I'm flying to Dubai to speak at a conference.
Yeah.
The first thing I tell people, and I will say this, if you're there, if you come to any of the panels or, the keynotes, the first thing I tell startups is do not buy a waterfall wall. And there's a story behind that. I go to a event for a startup in Santa Monica, and I'm there and I'm talking to some people. It's a brand new company. They just got funded. Beautiful office, right? They got party, they got shrimp, they got all this stuff. And I get there and I'm talking to this guy, and I'm leaning on the wall a little bit, and my arm is getting wet. And I'm like, what? They got a waterfall wall. And I'm like, wait a minute, isn't this a startup? I'm like, how much did that cost? You know what I mean? Like, no, that's an extra engineer. That's a couple of 2-3 more workers. Don't get a waterfall wall until you become Google. Then you can have a slide and a waterfall wall. As a startup, stay slim and trim and get it done.
Slides actually save you money. No need for an elevator, no need for an escalator, no need for stairs. You just slide. Google's onto something. You got a company called Driven Performance, Arabian. So tell us about that. So the company, as you told me offline, you're helping people understand electric vehicles, right?
Yeah. So Driven Performance is a company. It's a peer-to-peer company, kind of like if you were going to get an Uber. Instead of like calling Uber to come pick you up, you call Driven, and Driven Performance will send a technician out to you to help you dial in your Tesla or other electric vehicle, because these things are computers now. They're not regular cars. A Tesla, you can drive like a regular car, or you can drive it in a different mode that's more like a Tesla. So it's kind of like you need somebody to really help you dial that car in. So that's stage one. Stage two is Driven Performance, where we take you out on the track and actually give you instructional lessons on a track on how to safely drive that vehicle.
Very cool. And the electric vehicle space at large, what are your thoughts? Do you think this is a fad? It's going to die down, or do you think this is actually going to become the norm? Everyone's going to have an electric vehicle. I know the legislators around the world want that. A lot of places like California, New York, where I'm from, parts in Canada. By 2035, the lawmakers want all new car sales to be electric, so no more gasoline-powered vehicles. What do you think of this future?
So I drive a AMG GT. I'm a gas guzzler, loud pops and all that stuff.
That's an amazing car.
Yeah, but guess what? Tesla Plaid is faster. I take that back. Not faster, quicker. So if you're going from 0 to 60 or a quarter mile, Teslas will kill Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and all those cars. I'm more bullish on the hybrid, because if you're seeing a lot of these Ferraris and Koenigseggs, the higher end cars go into a hybrid mode. And I think there's going to be a balance to where you're going to have a very small gasoline engine. Like, I study cars. I'm really a big, supercar fanatic. And Koenigsegg has this car that has 1,600 horsepower. But the engine, the actual combustion engine, is like a 3-cylinder. And the car has 1,600 horsepower and does almost 300 miles an hour. So I think that's what we're going to see is just kind of like this hybrid mode, because what happens if all the power goes out like it does from time to time? You can't charge your vehicle. So if there's a little gasoline motor that can recharge that battery, I think that's the perfect balance in my mind.
As somebody who is a car fanatic, in your words, wouldn't you miss the old muscle diesel cars? All the smell of gasoline, the drifting, and the spinning wheels, and the all the smoke coming out of the exhaust. It's a different. I don't think the people of the future are going to understand that culture. They never grew up around that.
Well, I think it's just going to be the sound, because right before I got on with you, I saw a video on the new Rimac car. And that's another car that's, 1,000, 1,200 horsepower. And this guy was doing 4-wheel drift, like spinning the wheels, 4-wheel drifting, and all you saw was smoke, just burning the rubber off those tires. Yeah. So it's so much torque on these electric vehicles. That's the fun part. But I need the sound. Might have to start recording sounds and start a company where I'll just record car sounds and sell them to people.
Yeah, I think because Mercedes, or I think a lot of companies are doing this now. They have the electric vehicles, but you have the option to put a sound when you step on the throttle, like a fake exhaust sound. That's pretty cool. All right, I want to bring it back into music, and we'll close it off. Early in the conversation, you were telling me about how your manager ripped you off of your earnings back when you were at N.W.A. Well, let's talk about earnings for artists in general right now. As I said, since N.W.A. was formed, huge changes in technology. Now most people, no one has a CD or a cassette tape or a VHS. Everybody streams their music. In fact, streaming accounts for more than 80% of the gross revenues of the entire music industry, I read. What does this mean for the earnings of the individual artist? Do you think it's more fair, less fair? What's going on today?
Well, right now it's way less fair, because I get my little royalty checks from streaming, and it's like pennies on the dollar now. I don't know who made that deal, but what I do believe is going to happen with the blockchain, as people start to understand the blockchain, right? Mm-hmm. And understand how you can put your information on a ledger, like you can actually stamp your information for your song, like who wrote it, who created it, who produced it. All of these things, the splits of royalties, will all reside on the blockchain, and everyone will get paid straight to their accounts immediately. And I think that's going to be the future, as we as artists wake up and decide, like, you know what? I don't need to give my music to Spotify or one of these streaming services anymore, because if you look at the younger artists, a lot of the younger artists have millions of followers on TikTok and Instagram and social media. They can sell directly to their fan base now.
So how do you do that if you don't go through Spotify? How do you?
Well, think about it. If on TikTok right now, you can sell products. So you could sell your music direct if you wanted to. There's a lot of artists on YouTube that actually just put their music up on YouTube and make their money off the plays on YouTube. So there's so many ways to do it now. And I think that these bigger companies that are just paying pennies on the dollars to stream your music are going to have to change the way they do it as these companies start pulling their stuff off.
What about NFTs?
I'm a big fan of NFTs. I think that's another thing that a lot of people have to explore, understand what it is, because some people think, oh, it's just about pictures. It's about pixelated photos, right. But it's not. It's so much more.
I always wonder why artists don't put their original tracks on an NFT and sell that NFT, because basically what would happen is whoever buys that NFT would have ownership rights of, well, not the song itself, but the NFT of the song. Right. And they could, if you're an A-lister, you could sell it for millions, if not, or tens of millions.
Yeah.
I suppose that could happen, but why aren't people doing that? Is it a legal issue? Is it agreement issue with the label?
People don't understand it yet. You got to understand, a lot of artists aren't really technologically savvy, and it takes time for them to understand it. Artists are the last to adopt something. You know what I mean? They are the last to get involved. They let somebody else build it. Then they want to see, okay, can I make money off of this? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, I'll do it. It was kind of like when we went from record and cassette tape to CD. Not
Right.
everybody jumped on it. A lot of people was like, no, I'm not putting my music digital. That's going to ruin my music. I heard that. And then now everybody was, jumping on the bandwagon. And same thing with MP3. I'm not putting my song on an MP3. What's that? They got to understand it, and then they'll get involved.
I see. Would you make an NFT audio track?
Oh, we're already working on it. Matter of fact, we own our own NFT company, NFT marketplace that we're about to launch. And one of my things is to educate people on how to get on board and how to make money.
Okay. And what's your next musical endeavor that you can't talk about?
Yeah, so we'll be in Dubai.
Yeah,
Me and Scott Page, my buddy Scott Page will be there from Pink Floyd, and we're going to be doing a mashup together, a couple of performances. And then I got a bunch of concerts coming up. My girl group JJ Fad, the song Supersonic, we tour a lot together, and just doing that, and going to Europe and doing some DJ sets, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's the Dubai Future Blockchain Summit. I'll be there too, so I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, Arabian Prince.
Yes, sir.
It'll be a huge honor. But it's a big conference organized by the Dubai World Trade Center, so you'll be there. You'll be making a few, I believe, speeches as well, right? You'll be on stage talking, and you have a musical performance with Scott Page. Any musical genres that you're branching out into that you probably didn't explore as much before?
Yeah, we're getting deep into the EDM space, and actually am going to be, here's what I'll say. We will be changing EDM slightly.
Okay.
Because EDM is what it is, but there's different ways to do dance music, and we're going to explore another little way of dance music and add a little spice to EDM.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear that get released. Now, Arabian, last question, I'll let you go. Who or which group has been your single biggest influence in your entire career?
So I would have to split that to 3, because that's my sound. My sound was created by Parliament Funkadelic, Prince, and Kraftwerk. Those are my 3.
All right.
And I can't live without any of those 3.
Okay. Well, real pleasure speaking with you, Arabian, and I'll see you in Dubai. Thank you for spending the time to talk about your work, tell us your story, and your projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you soon. Take care. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for watching Kitco News. I'm David Lin. Stay tuned.